many people aren't doing this, and they're wondering why they're struggling, or wondering why they're feeling burnt out, or wondering why they can't get the take-home pay or the profit margin that they want. Hi there, Kelsey Toner here, the founder of Guest Focused Tour Business Coaching, where every day myself and our team of incredible coaches are helping you build a thriving, profitable tour business. Welcome back to our series on how to price tours, activities, and experiences for profit. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to price private and custom tours and why we should be thinking about those two things differently from one another. If you're confused by pricing public versus custom versus private, and you're not entirely sure how to think about positioning them for maximum profitability, well, you are in the right place. We'll even break down for those multi-day operators as well as day tour operators some of those important considerations. Let's dive in. So let's start with public tours, or sometimes called group tours or scheduled departures, are standardized shared experiences often priced per guest. For day tours, they're typically lower priced, higher volume, and rely on a pretty consistent occupancy. We might think of a city walking tour priced at $80 a person with a 12-person capacity to ensure strong profit margins. Now, on the multi-day side of the equation, we also have these types of group tours or scheduled departures where anyone can join. We have higher price points covering lodging, transportation, meals, etc. And profitability is strong, but occupancy risk is higher. On a multi-day experience, we've got to have clear booking deadlines, and cancellation policies are crucial. For example, you might be running 3 7-day tours in Sicily, priced at $3,500 per guest, but you have clear minimums that are required to run that departure. So what about private tours? So here we're selling exclusivity and personalized attention at a premium. Essentially what we're saying is you as a client, you can book this tour activity experience, and me as the operator, me as the tour business owner, I'm not going to sell it to anyone else. I am going to make it exclusive just to you. But that comes with a pretty big opportunity cost, because you could imagine you could use those same assets, potentially the vehicle, the tour leader, that time slot, etc., for a whole bunch of people. And so that's why we have to add a premium to make up for that opportunity cost. For day tours, we often see a flat rate per group that's clearly displayed online to be able to allow for booking. For example, with my private Paris, we might see a half-day wine tour priced at 650 euros, flat for up to 4 guests, and maybe each additional guest would only add an extra 100 euros. On the multi-day side of things, these are typically sold as premium experiences, but a best practice allows guests to buy out or ultimately privatize a standard public trip. For example, Backroads Biking Tours lets clients easily book an entire scheduled departure just for their group. Now, a distinction I want to make here, and I want to encourage you to use in your tour activity business as well, is this distinction here between private and fully custom or tailor-made. With these private experiences, they're still productized, meaning it's still a standard tour, it's a standard departure, maybe with some minor customization on the end if we're slightly changing the pickup point or including a pickup or something like that. But by and large, you should be able to sell this online. You should be able to price it and make it easy to book, because there's not going to be that much customization. Okay, that gets us to our third category, which is fully custom tours or bespoke experiences. Now, whether this is on the day tour, on the multi-day tour side, here we have significant customization. We often have consultations with clients, and we have unique or custom billing depending on the needs of our guests. So for day tours, it's important here to track some of these planning and admin costs, and those are above and beyond the actual tour pricing. You might have a non-refundable planning fee, but often on the day tour side of things, you're simply adding this into the margin. So for example, maybe you did a customized birthday horseback riding tour that was base $150 per guest, but you added $250 custom planning fee and another $250 for some premium wines and a custom picnic basket. So on the multi-day side of things, we highly recommend having some kind of non-refundable planning fee that's often charged upfront and either can be used as credit if somebody moves forward with the purchase. But what you're doing here is trying to cover some of those upfront costs of people coming and asking for a completely bespoke itinerary and then not ultimately purchasing. Because of all of this extra effort and planning, you have to have clearly defined margins above your baseline costs. For most of our clients, we're recommending 30% above what you're charging on private tours. So as an example, you may have put together a customized 10-day tour of Patagonia hiking tour and charged an upfront $350 to put together that itinerary, and that upfront fee could simply be used as credit towards the final bill. Now, for those of you that do this type of bespoke and custom work for clients, or maybe you do it as an add-on service should those requests come in, note that these often have a pretty significant opportunity cost that we're often overlooking, meaning that let's say only 5 to 10 of your clients over the course of a year are doing these types of custom itineraries. Now, if you add up all of the time, all the inputs, all the back and forth, the custom billing, potentially the training and communicating to whoever's hosting and ultimately facilitating that experience, we start to appreciate that there's a lot of phantom and hidden costs associated with this type of custom and bespoke itinerary. And it's not just the cost that we have to pay somebody to do that, or potentially that's you, but it's also the opportunity cost. It's the maybe 20 hours plus for each one of those that could have been spent adding a new distribution channel, or in business development, or in cutting costs. So the true costs of doing that type of bespoke work are often much, much higher. And that's why we have this significant markup. Now, many people aren't doing this, and they're wondering why they're struggling, or wondering why they're feeling burnt out, or wondering why they can't get the take-home pay or the profit margin that they want. So I just wanted to flag that if you are truly doing this type of white glove, custom and tailoring experience, then one, you better be charging for it if you want to have a sustainable, profitable business. And two, you're probably going to need to increase and focus on the perceived value. If you want somebody to come to you and pay $250 upfront to put together a custom itinerary, especially in the age of AI, where maybe in a few keystrokes I can have something dash off to me, then we have to get a lot better at communicating why you are different, what you're going to bring to the table, the special connections that you have, the experience. We're going to have to do a lot better job of selling ourselves and our services if we're going to have those upfront fees. Recent industry research from Arrival here in the tours and activities sector in 2025 highlights several trends to consider when pricing for private and custom tours. Firstly, we're seeing strong demand. There's growth in private bookings, particularly corporate events, team building, incentive travel, but overall the demand for private is significantly up. Two, digital optimization is key. Operators excelling in private tours often have clear, mobile-friendly online booking processes, where that expectation to be able to quickly and efficiently see the availability, get the pricing, and ultimately book a private experience is helping those operators thrive. Next, localized marketing is key. Many of these private and more custom tours thrive on niche targeting and highly personalized marketing strategies. Broad, generalized promotions are just not as effective as getting a highly customized offer in front of a highly specialized market. And finally, successful operators are leveraging pricing technology. On our public tours and private tours, using booking software, we can have variable pricing depending on demand, or shoulder season, or peak season. And we can often have upsells or experience enhancers to boost revenue per booking and ultimately drive up profits, even on private tours. My honest recommendation when you're looking at this product lineup and you're thinking of these different options is not to try and do all of them. Again, we don't want you to fall into that trap of trying to be everything to everybody. Your pricing strategy and your marketing message and your positioning might align you more with having set group departures, as well as the ability to make some of them private, and then you don't do any custom at all. You might make the choice that you do entirely private tours, and you're going to focus exclusively on a few marketing campaigns and distribution channels that are highly focused on that more premium experience, but it's still productized. It's still able to be able to bot online. It's still able to have online travel agents and other people connect into and ultimately see that availability and make that purchase for you. You might also decide to go right to the tippy top of the market and maybe blend. Okay, we have some standard private offerings, and if you really want that bespoke, high touch service, well, you can pay us for it at the end of the day. And if people are scared off by that high price or an upfront fee, then you can always direct them back to those private tours. So I do like those combinations of being a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, or go all in on just one of these categories. There's no rule here that just because there's a rise in demand for private tours that you have to start offering them. If you're a multi-day operator out there, I just want to encourage you to do the same sort of thing. Maybe zero in on one of these pricing strategies, one of these product lineups. And candidly, there's a lot of small and medium-sized multi-day operators out there that are spending an awful lot of time on that custom, that white glove, that bespoke, and you're simply not charging what you're worth. And oftentimes you're running your business as a charity. You're running it at a loss and you're subsidizing the amazing experiences that you're offering for your guests. If you know what I'm talking about, if you know who you are, I feel for you. One of the simplest things that you can do if you're caught in that fully bespoke multi-day space is really to start thinking about productizing your offers. Really try and lean in and get that product market fit and say like, hey, these are our top 3 best-selling tours. We have pretty consistent departures with them, and then do as much as you can to leverage those assets. In another series here in our training, we talk about some of the ways that you can increase the revenue per asset. And so when you build an itinerary, when you put together a package, when you have those relationships and put together that whole package, if you can sell it more than once, whether that's a private or a scheduled departure, you're already finding efficiencies. You're increasing the lifetime revenue and the lifetime profit that you can derive from that fixed asset, right? You can use that same sales page. You can use that same travel planner. And that's the type of efficiency that we're looking for in the business. We will try and reduce that complexity. The last perspective I want to offer our multi-day operators is to beware of limiting your group size. Now, many people talk about how they really want that intimacy and smaller group size of 6 to 8. But just know you are intentionally sort of limiting your upside. In many ways, you are essentially running a private tour as a public tour. Now, this is not to say that you can't have intimate small group tours, but in order to make that a sustainable business, you have to charge like it is a private departure. You simply have to move up market and charge a lot more, and hopefully your ideal target guests will see the value and come along for the ride. One of the biggest breakthroughs many of our multi-day business owners have when they come into the program is thinking about and getting the tools to create incredible experiences on a multi-day departure with that larger group size. Just by adding sometimes 4 people to your departures, you can have a significantly more profitable business. So as you're thinking about pricing your tours, activities, and experiences for profit, hopefully this framework of thinking about group tours and departures as separate from private, as separate from custom and bespoke. Knowing that each of these has certain trade-offs and considerations when we're doing our cost plus pricing to get our pricing floor, and when we do our value-based pricing to ultimately determine the upper amounts that we can charge for these incredible experiences. So it's time to dive back into that pricing calculator. And if you're doing custom and private, you can still use this pricing calculator. But of course, we're going to now properly track some of the phantom costs, some of the fixed costs that go into any custom tour. In fact, one way to think about your private tour pricing is to actually use the pricing calculator and say, okay, I could run this tour with, 15 people on it, and I would get this much profit margin. But I'm okay with this much profit margin, which would be the price as if there were 10 people on it. And maybe that ultimately gives you your sort of minimum private tour price. Maybe it doesn't really matter how many people are ultimately on it. You know that I'm willing to use these assets. I'm willing to run a tour at this profit margin. So if you don't yet have a copy of that pricing calculator, you don't know what I'm talking about, head over to guestfocus.com/pricing. There we have a done for you pricing calculator that was put together by our coaching team, and we'd love to give it to you as a free gift. Thanks so much for tuning in. In the comments down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this difference between private and custom. I'd love to know, are you offering all 3 of these different product categories? Love to see you in the conversation. If this has been useful to you, it would mean the world to us to give it a like, give it a subscribe if you're here on YouTube, potentially even share it with a friend or colleague. It would certainly mean the world to me. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.